We are back live. We are back live. Load Management Group Chat Podcast, episode number 5. BP, Zine, the professor. We're here, man. Listen, I'm not even gonna lie to you. There's gonna be no sports talk in this. There's gonna be no entertainment talk in this. There's gonna be no album review talk in this. There's gonna be no BS Instagram talk on this. We are getting straight to the facts. This is a serious episode. So last episode we started trending in this direction, and just the current events and mood of the country has made things that we used to argue, debate about, Meek Mill versus Drake, Isaiah Thomas versus Jordan, all this stupid stuff that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme, now is being put to the back burner, to the side. We are talking about important issues. So I want to just start with, how is y'all mood, guys? How are you guys feeling? Do you feel like a weight is on your shoulders? Are you getting anxiety about these riots that we've been seeing? How do you feel about the third-degree murder charge against Big George Floyd, against his murderer? How you guys feeling? How you guys holding up?
I'll start it off. I'm not gonna lie to you, just a lot of mixed emotions. Generally a positive guy, but honestly, just being an African American, like I explained on the last podcast, being part of police brutality when I was young, so I know the vibes. I understand the anguish, the pain, the stress of just waking up being a black man, and a lot of pressures that I put on myself to represent myself the right way. In regards to everything that's been transpiring since the last time we met, man, it's been a whirlwind. I thought a lot of this could have been prevented if the DA in Minnesota just acted swiftly. But then it just lets you know there's a lot of politics. And I'm going to get to that later on, why politics plays a huge role in this, and how the African American community needs to start understanding that it's not about popping bottles and picking up a chain and picking up vehicles. If you really want change in this world, you got to educate yourself. You got to seek knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And honestly, legislations means the world. But listen, we're going to get into the rioting, the looting, whatever. But just me personally, I just been battling just a lot of thoughts. Social media has just warped my mind. The news media has warped my mind. I find myself so consumed in it. But I'm a sponge. I like knowledge, wisdom. I like to get information and create my own thoughts. So to keep it a buck, I just been 50-50, very emotional. You know what I mean? Like how I should feel, why I should feel this way. At the same time, being a father, being an educator. So I'm 50-50, fellas, man. Keep it a buck.
Yeah, honestly, since this whole situation happened with George Floyd, I've been like, haven't been able to leave my phone. Like, I feel like every time I update my timeline on Twitter, I'm just always just seeing something. So I've been kind of like really engaged and seeing everything that's going on. Like everything that's going on as far as like the protesting, which originally started due to the case of what happened with George Floyd. I think that helped bring to justice the police officer that was arrested. We got 3 more to go. Hopefully, the system, or the court system in Minneapolis, does the right thing with this. They make sure they know what's at stake. And I kind of feel like for the first time in a long time, we're starting to, I'm not going to say we're starting to see change, but I'm seeing a different effort. Kind of before, I would be like, all right, X, Y, and Z happened, and then like after a couple of days or after a week, it's gonna fall on deaf ears. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people aren't gonna go as hard. But just seeing like people in Japan, like people all over the country are marching for this guy. Like, it's really like humbling. Like, enough is enough. And I think that this was like the last straw, and hopefully this like spikes and like leads to bigger change. But like, it's not over yet. We got to see what's coming. So I'm interested. I'm engaged. I'm tapped in all the way. I want to see this through. I hope the right thing is done. And that's rest in peace to him. Like, prayers out to his family. Everybody that was able to had the privilege of knowing George Floyd. It seems like he was a great person. And my heart's with you. I genuinely feel for you. And we support you.
I'm kind of on the other side of the fence from you guys as far as engagement with it. As I mentioned last podcast, I've kind of been trying to stay away from the internet, from the trolls, from the whole news media outlets. And again, I think this is another situation that we're going to see in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. I don't think much is changing. I think, again, I think it's more just out in the open because of, again, phones, cameras, social media outlets like that. But I go through Facebook every day and I see hundreds of videos of the same type of actions, maybe somebody not being murdered, but police brutality, just blatant disrespect for the law, of their badge, of their duty, against Black and brown people every day. So do I think do I think these protests are bringing change? I can't say. We'll see in the long run. But as far as the whole situation, I've kind of disassociated myself, and I don't want people to think that I'm not conscious. But again, I just think it's just more of the same and more of the same and more of the same. And I don't know what changes looks like. And I don't know how change will come, but I don't think that these protests are doing anything differently from past. So that's kind of my take on it.
Does anybody want to respond to that before I jump in?
Yeah, so I respect BP's, and we all know BP personally. He is really, he portrays what he is. He's laid back, cool. He gets his thoughts in order, whatever the case, before he speaks. But I have to be totally opposite of that because I think this is the time to be aware, to be attached. And they want us to have that plight of just, no, we're not going to do nothing. It's just going to be the same old, same old. This is the first time, and I'm not condoning the looting and the rioting or whatever the case may be, but, this is the first time I seen sparks. I seen flames. And sometimes you got to blow shit up in order for the people to get their eyes open. And this is the first time where I felt like people who look totally opposite of me is actually seeing it. And like you said, yes, it's been going on, but we got cameras now. We're able to film it. There's nobody with a pure heart that could watch that video and conclude anything else from it that was a murder. And I think this is why this type of protest is kind of different than what we had in 2016 when we had with Rodney King, even when we had it with MLK during that time. So I respectfully disagree, BP, that especially in your role, I feel that you should be in tune. I know it can become clout chasing and rhetoric on a lot of social media platforms, but if you go to the right resources, you can see a lot of the positive things that it is coming to light. And this is why I love my channel feed, because I can actually select what I want to view and filter out the BS from the real stuff. And I suggest that with everybody.
And that's my thing. My fault. And I just wanted to combat that. That's my thing. I can't filter out the real from the BS. You know what I mean? And I feel like I would be more engaged if it was something that directly affected me, directly affected somebody in my family, directly affected one of my students. You know what I mean? Or something that happened directly in this state, in this city. I feel like I would be more engaged with it if it was. But to me, I think this is another situation of things that happen every day. And you know what? I don't want to say that it's nothing different, because a man's life is lost. So that's never okay. But at the same time, this is nothing that we haven't seen. And I don't know.
Yeah, but BP, I don't know that, man.
I don't engage it again because, again, I don't feel personally attached to it. You know what I mean? But I think I'm just numb to it, to be honest. I think I'm just numb to it.
I could respect that. I could respect that. And obviously BP's one of our brothers. We obviously respect his opinion. But I just feel like something's got to eventually change. Like, you know what I mean?
But we've been saying that, man. When is it change?
But I feel like
What's
it's
gonna
tough.
change it?
The change could happen like with our age demographic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's tough to say, like, you know, even though we could say like it's not directly happening to us or one of our immediate friends, but like for a Black person, that's who we are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, somebody may not be my best friend or even my associate, but you have the same kind of makeup as me. You're Black. So it's kind of like I may never go through what some people go through as far as being beaten battered by the police, but just to see someone that looks the same as me, that it kind of like wakes you up a bit, and you start to ask yourself, if a change ever is going to happen, every person has to be open to it, and they have to like kind of say, all right, what can I do on my end? How can I educate myself? And like, you know, we, besides Josh, we all here have children that are like, you know, Black. So ultimately, I think it's even more so important in our case to, like, you know, inform ourselves on certain things going on, and like, you know, let so we can be able to talk to our children about certain things. Just because we never went through anything, if things don't get better, it may be 10 times worse for them by the time they're ready to like kind of be young adults and be out there in the world. So I think like like hopefully you're wrong, and I'm not going to say that this is going to be the last case where a police officer, like, you know, brutalizes a Black man and murders a Black man. But hopefully this movement that's been going on, and hopefully with this upcoming election, we start sparking certain changes. So certain things, if they do happen, they're punished correctly, or certain things are put in place to help prevent that as much as possible. It wouldn't be realistic to say that we're never going to see a situation like this again because we're like, you know, protesting and we're speaking out on it. But even if someone's doing it for fake clout, like, you know, I'm getting to the point where I even respect it, because even if you don't genuinely believe it and you putting it out there just to kind of be a part of it, you open to spread that message. And if that message gets out to, and one thing I saw today, BP. So I don't want to quote the exact years, but it was around the time where I guess something was happening. I want to say it was in the 50s, and there were like peaceful protests because the schools were being segregated, and then there's pictures of like, you know, African American children and adults walking, and like the white people are throwing stuff on them. They're like tearing them down, and those were peaceful protests. And one could have the same mindset as you and be like, listen, like these guys are
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock, they're dumb. Like they're out here getting fucked up, and nothing's happening to them, and they're peaceful, and nothing's gonna change. But I believe 6 years down the line, the civil rights law was put into place. Did that help white people? Some white people view Black people differently. Probably not, but there was certain things that was put in place as far as laws that made it not easy or not possible to do certain things that they were capable of doing before. And I think that as Black people, that's what we're striving for. You're never going to get perfect. I think Josh said it one time, you're never going to get perfect. You're never going to get exactly what you want, but you want to fight for something so you can negotiate and get some things in your favor, if that makes sense.
No,
So
I definitely
you,
and I just want to make it clear, like, I'm not against anybody who is protesting or who is for the movement or who has a sincere heart in this movement. But like I said, it's hard sometimes to differentiate the real from the bull.
So let me ask this question to you guys, right? Since we're still on the topic of George Floyd, since we all kind of agree, I mean, BP is kind of on the fence, but this does feel a little bit different. So we're going to talk more about the rise later on, but do you guys feel that this is being viewed differently by the majority and by other races other than Black people, because of, it wasn't like, hey, it looked like he could have been going in his pocket and he got shot, or the cop was nervous because, you know, he's going into a dark alley or he's pulling a guy over and I'm saying, and I don't know what's going on, and I just reacted. I was scared, where a guy is actually standing on, I mean, had his knee on the guy's neck for like almost 8 minutes. Do you think that that's like the fact that it's just so undeniable?
Right.
Yeah. It's that. I mean, that's basically like, and Nickelodeon had a commercial. I don't know if you guys saw it, where they just played someone breathing for 9 minutes straight, so you could kind of see, like, hear how long that is. And it's like that specific. So whatever happened with, like, other situations in the past, we weren't able to like really see it live. Like, we saw footage and we heard about it. This was so different because and I think it kind of helped wake up everybody else, because they were looking at the guy and it's live. It's a live video. They're like, yo, you're killing him. Get off of his neck. And the dude's just kind of looking at him. So I think that kind of like wakes you up a little bit, like, sheesh, like, you know what I'm going, like, even like, Ahmaud Arbery. I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, but that was that was terrible. But that's kind of like a pre-recording. You know what I'm saying? This is happening in real time. People are there watching, and it's like you didn't even try to hide the fact that you were doing this. You like blatantly were killing this guy. He's begging you to stop. He's telling you over and over he cannot breathe. He's a grown-ass man asking for his mother, and you still proceed to keep he can't do anything. His hands are behind his back. There's four of you there, and you still proceed to keep your knee in his neck. Like, how like evil, like how sinister can you get? So I think that's what's kind of like, sparking. It's like something has to change. And I think until now, a lot of other races outside of the Black community, they're starting to see like, maybe what these guys are talking about isn't that far-fetched. Like, this is crazy what we're seeing. How is that allowed? So, I mean, yeah.
Anybody want to add to that, or you want me to move us forward?
No, I think I agree, man. It was to the point where you heard civilians and the anguish in their voice, them pleading, them trying to exalt their compassion to this police officer who just looked so soulless, who looked like he was getting pleasure out of it. And from everything that I researched, that is not a procedure that is justified, especially when the guy is, handcuffs behind. Now, when I did my research, I seen in Minnesota, they had 44 incidents since 2015 of people going unconscious with that whole knee on the neck procedure. So that right there is a simple change where, this is why I get emotional over George Floyd, because his death to me sparked an emotion in all color barriers, all languages, all beliefs, where if you think otherwise, you are the problem. You are bigotry. You are racist. You are ignorant. And you have some deep rooted, evil type thoughts and ideas. But like that video is slowly playing out. Is the most realist type of footage. Like Dot said, it's not a snippet, it's not a body cam, it's not something that has no audio to it. It's right there, plain as day, and it's just awful. So I think this definitely, George Floyd is going to be remembered and honored, because he is that change that we need. Because once again, Will Smith, great quote, this has been happening for years, but we're have the opportunity to actually film it, and that's the scary thing about it.
So one thing that I want to kind of challenge you guys on is the respectability politics. Sometimes I think that we as Black people be like, well, if you just pull your pants up and you don't have tattoos and you don't and you don't wear jewelry and you're not blasting your music and you're not doing XYZ, then then you'll get left alone. But even move it to like getting a job and doing XYZ, just moving through life. The thing that's that the reason why I think that that's kind of fallen by the wayside is like just me as a man at 35, like, yo, I'm educated. I'm about to be Ivy League educated. I have a high position at work. But yo, I drive around like I was driving around today with Freddie Gibbs on 40. You know what I'm saying? I have chains, you know what I'm saying? So I have a big beard, you know what I'm saying? I wear my hat backwards, you know what I'm saying? I wear hoodies, I dress quote unquote urban. So it's like, I don't like the fact that we just can't, like, I want us to be able to get like the reason why we have to push so hard back. I feel when when the Fox News or the New York Post will be like, oh well, this person actually had an arrest in 2005 for this, and they were shoplifting in 2000. The reason why I have to push back so hard on that is because if we let them fight on our side of the field, we're always gonna lose. We have to push the ball on their side of the field and be like, hey, no matter how a black person looks, no matter how they're dressed, no matter if they have 0 tattoos or 50 tattoos, I don't care if you have a face full of tats. You know what I'm saying? The onus is not on black people to be presentable to white people to make them feel okay.
And just to piggyback off that, Josh, even hearing you say that, it just gets me outraged. And the people, and because you're 100% correct, but that's why the outrage is there. But for the same people who say that about blacks, that's the same rhetoric during this whole Me Too movement. Oh, she had a skirt on. Oh, she was showing her breasts or cleavage. So AKA she asked to be raped. She was calling for it. So you're telling me because I want to rock earrings, a chain, I may bump some little baby down the street, I may walk different, I may talk different, and you're fearful of that is the reason why you could stop, frisk me, predetermined, not knowing my background. So you're absolutely right, and we just live in a society where we judge so much. Me as an African American, I judge other ethnicities too, so I'm not blank from it. And it's a natural thing, but my prejudgment doesn't all associates with negativity, and I feel like that's what happens to us all the time. And this is why I speak on, like, yeah, I want to do certain things, but I know I have to present myself a certain way for others to be comfortable. And sometimes I go home not feeling comfortable by me even thinking that way, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all facts, and I just feel like it's just something that's kind of always been embedded in us. And I think like that, going back to what I'm saying now, I feel like we have to kind of be the generation across the board, across the country, to kind of change that and kind of push for that. Like, growing up, like you was told like you can't, like that's an like African American thing. That's a black person thing. If they get cornrows, dreads, we're told. At least I know I was told growing up, like, you can't have that kind of haircut if you want to get a job. You have to have like a regular haircut. You have to be clean shaven. I think it's not until like now, like I'm seeing, like, I know a lot of males being able to like even wear, and I'm only speaking for males and not females because obviously I am a male. Obviously females do have their own situations as well, but it's not until now I'm seeing like, guys like able to go to positions and have like, beards. Before, I don't think that
they
was.
They put it in the law. You can't discriminate on hair now. They put in the law. You can't discriminate on textures of hair now.
Exactly. And I remember going back to, I used to work for this organization, this healthcare agency. I used to tell you guys about some of the issues I was having there. And like, the guy that was our manager, he would just like, the way it was, he wanted everyone he wanted to build his like office or the program of Maxim everywhere to be kind of like them. They were like, white guys. They had like slick back hair. They had like, they went about things a certain way. They like to go out after work and they like to drink beers and they were like always clean shaven. And a couple of times, like, comments were made to me about when I just started to grow facial hair. I couldn't grow it before, so I was finally excited. I was never going to work like, anybody that knows me knows I'm kind of always well put together. So he would make comments about like the facial hair and stuff like that. Like, why do you get your hair cut like that? And back in 2013, 2014, I'm 23, 24. So I'm not even like grasping like, the really what he's saying to me. I'm not like, as educated on it. But so I just think like, it's just like, that's whack. Like, every culture is different. Like there's certain things white people do, Indian people, Asian people, everyone does things differently, and you shouldn't have to conform to one race to make them happy. Like, why is that decided to be the race acceptable or, the appropriate thing to do?
Whoa.
BP riding bikes.
Gotta get out the hood, man. Gotta get out the hood.
All right, Bobby. Bobby, you have something to add? You know what I'm saying? You could add it, and then I'll move us to our next topic.
No, I agree with everything they said, but again, to play devil's advocate, we all gotta. Everybody has a uniform, whether it's in the workplace, whether we all coach, we all referee. So like, we all gotta have a kind of a change that we have from our normal lives when we're going into certain situations that we are. So I understand not conforming and your off time, but when you're on the clock, you're on the clock. I feel like everybody has that certain level of conformity when they're going into work, when they're going again. Oh, if you're on your own time, that's on you. You shouldn't have to conform for the masses, and if you're at your leisure, or because the cops don't like how you look. But again, if you're in the workplace, there's a certain accountability that you have to have with that.
See, I hear that, and my only pushback with that, BP, is I understand that, but my facial hair and my hair has nothing to do with the task at hand. Yes, being in uniform, making sure shirt and tie, but when I hear, your beard's too long or the cornrows, that has nothing to do with the task at hand, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You having a short haircut versus an afro or vice versa is not going to change the performance you do on the court in your work field. And that's what I'm trying, because I've been in school when I heard white is right, black's on the attack. And I'm like, what's white is right? Meaning, slick back hair and this groomed. And I'm like, so do I not look right? And that's what I keep going back to Dot and what he's saying. We have to change that mindset moving forward, because we're so processed and thinking that this way is the only way. And as long as it's not affecting your job performance and what you provide for that company, for what they hired you for over your resume, that's where I just have my pushback in regards to that. But I definitely understand
We're getting specific though. I'm talking about just like, again, vernacular, like how you act. I think like we all change. Everybody code switches I'm not talking about my beard. Like I go to work with my beard, like, but I'm talking about as far as like the way you dress. You wouldn't go to work with that shirt on. Like, you know what I mean?
Nah,
and that DC
I would not.
You know what I
No,
mean?
but that's
And
natural.
What happened?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
I'm saying that's how we switch every day. Right now we're comfortable in, again, how Josh mentioned. We are from urban communities. This is us. You know what I mean? But when we go into work, we're not talking the same. We're not dressing the same. We're not acting the same.
No, definitely. Like, but I think more so what we were kind of getting to. So I don't know about Zine, but I know when I went to Catholic school, it's changed now in 2020. When I talk to kids and old teachers that are still there, I remember there was no afros allowed, there was no dreads allowed, there was no braids allowed. You went back in the day in the 90s, when you go to work, you couldn't, if you went to work with a afro, if you went to work with the natural hairstyle that a lot of women do now, if you went to work as a male with like cornrows, dreadlocks, like, something that wasn't like the normal, like, basic haircut, clean shaven. I remember like growing up, people say if you go into an interview, make sure you're no facial. It couldn't even be nice. You had to have no facial hair, cleanly shaven. So that's kind of what the stuff that we're kind of like talking about. Like, if you work, obviously, like you're not gonna wear like jeans or your boxes are showing. You're gonna look presentable. But as far as like the other things, like certain cultures have hairstyles that like that's just them. Like, I'm not saying come to your job with like half braid, half afro. Like, don't do that. But like obviously, like if you want it neatly put together and it's an acceptable hairstyle, like why do they have to like feel a certain type of way? Like, oh, I have to cut my dreads off if I want to apply for this job. Like that's what I think we're saying is not okay.
Okay, so again, playing devil's advocate. Now is that coming directly from subordinate? I mean, from supervisor, or is that like a state of mind, a self-conscious thing?
Well, I'll say this, like, a lot of stuff in the workplace is just like a lot of implicit bias. So like naturally, like let's say you start a job, right? So when you naturally start a job, you don't even realize it, but you're looking for that support system. Like, dang, is there any other black people here? Wow, there's no black people here. Dang, is there at least a person of color here? So you just naturally want to just like look for someone to accept you. So a lot of times, like what I think Dot and Zeem is getting at is like, these white people are so uncomfortable with us, especially black men, and they're intimidated and they don't know how to talk to us. They don't know how to deal with us. So now you come to a job interview and you have dreads and they're like, ugh, because it's not part of their culture. So like it's like you already have like a strike against you. Now, when you talk about the way we dress, like, hey, when I wear a tie, you've seen it. I like my ties to be colorful and splashy. Whereas a lot of people, a lot of white men who work in corporate have very dim, dark, and demure ties. It's something as simple as that. I think it's kind of what they're talking about in terms of like, obviously, like, we're not going to go to the extreme, like, yeah, if you show up to a job interview for like a corporate job and you have jean shorts on, you're an ass. but like, say like I show up,
rolling.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying, say now I show up to a job interview, right, at age 22 when I graduated from Utica College, when I still had hair, and I happen to have braids. That's a strike against me, instead of just saying, hey, this kid is just another young person just trying to express himself and figure it out. Whereas they would give the benefit of the doubt to a white person, maybe with like a slick blonde hair back. Like, I think that's what we're kind of trying to like get at, where the margins are so thin that something like that could just tilt you not getting a job or not getting a promotion or not being viewed as doing as great a work as you're doing because they're so distracted by you being the other. I think is what we getting at.
And this is a quick story. I swear to God, my last job, right? When I worked at some spot called Segway, I floated in there just testing out the waters. And at this time, I made it a point to wear all long sleeve shirts. You know what I'm saying? So my tattoos wasn't show. And then I seen the art teacher. I ain't gonna put his name on blast. This guy had colorful tattoos everywhere, and then he had those earrings, that big hole in your earlobes and stuff like that, in your earlobes, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, he's comfortable. I'm coming comfortable. And you guys seen I switched up. I put my diamond earrings in, whatever the case may be, because I'm like, yo, he could do it. I could do it. He could feel comfortable. I wanted to feel comfortable, but my initial thought process was I was ashamed of the decisions I made in my life, which at the time I was the most proudest. I was gassed when I got earrings. I was gassed when I got my son's portrait on my arm. Like, so those are the type of phobias I am trying to eliminate, just me personally, moving forward. You know what I'm saying? I need people to stop being comfortable in their own skin. And then that thought process of the higher ups, who are majority white, to not look down on those little integral things. Can I do the job? Can I perform at a high level? Can I attribute to this business job, refereeing, coaching, whatever the case may be? And then let's go on and move forward, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, most part.
So we started doing little like Instagram polls about topics that people wanted to hear. So every week we're gonna do a viewer topic. And this topic is, the viewer topic is, how can white people be allies to Black people in moments like this, during protests, during riots, during upheaval, and just after this moment, being allies in the moment, and then going forward to help construct change in society. So I'm gonna lob it up to you guys, and whoever wants to just
I'm
jump
gonna
up
start with it. I'm gonna start with it. So
BP?
I think I want to get away from all short-term solutions. I want to say long-term is, if you see wrong or if you feel wrong, and if you have that feeling, address it, and address it openly. Don't hide it. Again, address it. I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had like an ill quote. I'm gonna pull that up at some point when one of y'all are talking. But he talked about racism being as if it was like dust in the air and nobody sees it until it hits the ground. And then once it hits the ground, it's like, oh, it's there. Everybody realizes, oh yeah, it's the elephant in the room, but it's always there until, quote unquote, shit hits the fan. So I think we need to just, as our white allies, just address it. If you see somebody being ignorant, if you feel somebody that in your immediate family and your circle that is a white counterpart of yours is being ignorant or being bigoted or racist in any way towards any other group, I think you need to address it. It can't be just blacks. It's the same thing with Latinos, same thing with the Middle Eastern, with Asian people, with anybody. If you feel that somebody around you or your white counterpart, it has some kind of bigotry or is displaying some kind of bigotry, address it and address it to them.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely got to be outspoken. Have to realize that you do have a certain privilege. Have to realize that there's just the difference. And I think like now I've been saying before, I used to go with a mindset of like I can't blame nobody for not speaking on anything, but like, man, this just kind of opened my eyes and gave me like a new mindset. If you're being silent, like I'm not gonna say I'm judging you, but it kind of makes me like think a little different, if that makes sense. Speak on it because like black people, white people are, if you want to be an ally, you make up the majority of this country. So obviously, if we do want to see some type of change, we're going to need white people to understand what we're going through, understand that there's a disadvantage being black and an advantage being white, and they have to, in some way or form, speak to that. So I think that's the best way a white person can be an ally.
I'm gonna keep it a buck, guys. I'm done explaining myself to white people if racism is real, if this is real. So, just even today, you guys know I do that grab and go meals. Obviously, the elephant in the room, Mr. A walking in there. I'm like, this world is crazy. And I have the, officer, I'm not even gonna say his name. He's a resource officer at the school. And we're having good dialogue about it. He's telling me about something that's supposed to happen in the city coming up. And he goes, Mr. A, more whites are killed by cops. And I'm like, that boils my skin. Like, you know what I
I've been
mean? Like
seeing that.
Trying to justify.
when they jump to that. So I'm like, officer, like I said, I just don't want to, say his name out there. So, I just hit him with some stats, For example, 457 whites were killed by cops. I have 389 blacks killed by cops. I said, officer, do you know that the world, this country is made up of 77% of people who identify as white, and only 12% of that is African American. So do the math real quick. Yeah, and I'm like, but this is what I'm talking about. That mindset is part of the problem. Defining the excuse is part of the problem. So I appreciate now, unfortunately, once again, I keep going back to George Floyd because the way he passed away, there was no reasoning behind it. There's no wiggle room. Your eyes can't play no tricks on you. It was live. And they're finally understanding what it is. And what I struggle with is the fact that I work at a school. They just appointed me to run the whole DEI program. For you guys don't know what that is, that's diversity, equity, inclusion in the school population, especially with the growing of diversity. I got to talk about race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, language, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity. So I just been doing a lot of research in regards to this. But how do I go to a staff that's majority Caucasian to let them know that white privilege is real? Because to change someone's mindset, you have to first have them accept what is really going on. So I just been battling just with that. So when I say I am done explaining myself, I'm done explaining if racism is real. I'm moving forward and educating people moving forward in regards to this is what it is. You need to understand it. This is why you need to understand it. And this is why we're upset and angry. And that's a great question from our viewer. I appreciate it and love it because I've been spending the last month and a half of how I'm going to present this to people, being an African American, speaking so passionately, but not passion to the sense where I'm turning them off to the ideas of let's all be one together, especially if your education, teaching people who live in different neighborhoods than you, does not make as much money as you, and experiences that you will never experience because of the melanin in your skin.
So yeah, and I agree, Zim. That's perfect way to go about it. So I applaud you on that, bro. But and I saw a status today that this guy was. They were going crazy on this guy on Facebook because he basically was like how, um, more white people. Same thing. More white people are like by the cops than
Yeah, just
blacks are, and I think sometimes white people make the mistake of taking the stats too logical, too literal, and not putting enough thought behind it. So if you do simple math, there are more white people in the country than there are black people. So obviously, there's naturally going to be more instances of like, murders of police at white people due to the hand of police. But what you have to understand is when you're a black male in this country, you are targeted differently. You are able to do certain things that white people are able to do. So I think like that's the biggest thing, like just understanding. And I think it was so important that you said you can't argue with somebody about why this is racist and why racism still exists. You'll go blue in the face. So what you have to do is, like you said, you have to hit them with stats. You have to educate them. You have to show them. I think like, that kind of brings us back to our point is why we can't say, and this is not a shot at you, BP. We love you, BP. I love you. But this is why you can't take it as like, if I'm not directly affected or if someone I know is not directly affected, then it's not, I kind of stay out of it because your voice or you mentioning something, us even doing this podcast, it may reach somebody that didn't understand it or didn't even look at it this way before. And that can help someone else in the future potentially. And I think like
I understand that, and I want to go back to Zim's point. It's not our responsibility to educate on this. So I'm tired of people shunning other people for not having an opinion. It's okay to not have an opinion. It's okay to not say anything, to not have an emotion on it, because you know what? That turns into, again, like Zim said, negative dialogue, which you don't want to get into because there are people that are not understanding. There are people that are not aware. So instead of just arguing with the fool, I'd rather just not say anything, to be honest.
I feel that, but
that's just my opinion. That's just
I get you. I know. I get you. I'm never gonna get mad at your opinion. I'm only gonna respect it. And I think that a part of this podcast is the people who watch, and the thing why I like it so much every week is we get to have dialogue. But I think it's so tough, BP, as like a black man, not to have an opinion. And it sounds so cliche, but there was a point in time, Bob, where we weren't even allowed to talk and like give our point of view. And now that we're not where we want to be, but now that we've made so many steps forward, for us to not be quiet, and I don't care who don't want to hear it. I don't care who don't want to understand it, but you're gonna hear it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna be silent just because I don't think that you'll take me serious. I'm always gonna get my point across. Like I think we do a good job of that in the chat. No matter, there's times where we'll send like 15 messages at a time. And it's like, damn, like, and it's like you're talking to yourself. But what I love about the chat, bro, whether anybody responds to it, acknowledges it or not, you had that platform to say how you felt and no one's shutting you up. Whether you want to read it, whether you want to understand it, whether you want to believe it, you're going to see it. And that's what we as black, we can't be, as black men and women, we can't be quiet because we always weren't afforded, or like, whatever the word I'm trying to say. We
I got you.
afforded the opportunity to have these conversations and be able to educate white people. We were told to just shut up or we would be jailed, we'd be beaten, or we'd be lynched, we'd be killed. So I think it's tough to kind of be quiet. Like that's just my opinion.
Jiggy, what you think?
So there's a
about the whole white ally and time to speak, not to speak.
Well, first of all, I really want to salute you guys. I really like the way that you guys. I liked what everyone said. I like the fact that everyone had a really strong and reasoned opinion and thought. So I'll just be brief. So MLK, Martin Luther King, had a quote, and he said that if everyone sweeps up their own steps and sidewalk, the neighborhood would look beautiful. So it's like, on one hand, it's like you have to get in the national or at least your local spotlight and be like, hey, like this is going on. You have to see this. This is important. We need to change this. And it's almost impossible to change, you're not going to change everybody in one sweep. Like everyone's not gonna see this video and be like, you know what, man, black people were right all along. That's just not realistic. But I do think that if white people, if black people, Latinx people, if our Asian brothers, if our Indian brothers, if they just swept up their own step, and if I hear Zeem saying something that I don't agree with, and I think is bigoted and racist, I'm like, come on, Zeem, like, come on, like, why are you doing that? If white people did the same thing, that would go a long way. Because at the end of the day, we can't control what people think, but we can put what we feel out there, and at least like Sean was saying, at least we have the ability now to at least put it out there. And social media has kind of been like the great equalizer, because back in the day, it was hard to get a platform. It was hard to get on the news. It was hard to get on TV. So now, it seems like if you are following these protests or riots, whatever you want to call it, on social media, it's like you're seeing it in real time. And TV is like lagging behind. TV is way behind what they're already showing on social media.
Facts.
So, and just to kind of wrap up the conversation, it's just very important that white people are at least open to listening. That's the first thing, because you can't change everyone's attitude in a day, a month, or a year. So so what Sean was saying is we used to get beat and slapped and killed for even trying to read. So if we look at how far we've come since then to see where we are now, we're not where we want to be, but every generation of black people has moved the ball forward. Some moved it more than others, you know what I'm saying? But it's super incumbent upon us to keep moving it forward. And part of that is making white people who are, for lack of a better term, they're the dominant, race in this society. We have to make them understand that, hey, these things are happening. Here's what we want. Here's what we expect. And here's how we can move forward. And then what they do with that information is just on them. So,
Facts.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So to move us forward, the officer, I don't want to say his name, the officer who murdered Big George Floyd has been charged with third-degree murder. We've been talking about it in the chat. We've seen on social media. How you guys feeling about him being so? Well, he has been charged. The other three officers who were present haven't been charged yet, but they've all been relieved of duty. So that's a positive step. Another positive step is that the officer has been charged with third-degree murder. Feeling about that? I'll come to BP first.
Yeah, I actually saw in an interview today that they actually changed the prosecutor on the case. So it's going to be the Attorney General of Minnesota, who happens to be a black man. I don't know how much bearing that has, but in the interview I was watching, he's saying that it is possible that that third-degree murder charge could be changed based on new facts being released and his new appraisal of the case and the evidence that he has at hand. So that's not in stone. And additional charges are coming to the other three. Again, the extent or what those charges are unknown right now, as they did change prosecutors, so they're going to be doing that review. Initial thought was third degree's not enough, because as we all mentioned before, it was just clearly blatant. The man was detained. He had 4 officers on him, and this man showed no remorse and didn't care for this man's life. So I think third-degree murder was definitely too lenient, and I'm hoping that that does get intensified. But I do hope that the other 3 officers do face some kind of charges. I don't want to see them go free. Again, just how we just talked about, how can white people be our allies, be an ally, be that voice, speak up. When you see wrong, say it's wrong. And as an officer, that's kind of your duty, and they didn't uphold their duty at that time. So I want to see them charged.
Yeah, I saw some stuff too online. So I guess everybody was kind of upset that he was charged with third-degree murder. But I kind of read that, and I don't know how true it is, but basically, in order to get him even arrested, they had to go that route of putting something like third degree on it. So hopefully that's really what it is. And like, moving forward, like, it will get upgraded to something more serious than a third degree murder charge. Because if you know anything about third degree murder, like, he can potentially walk from that or get like a slap on the wrist. So hopefully, like, with the changing of, like, who'll be prosecuting the case, like, justice is served.
So just first of all, the Attorney General, Keith Ellison. So that's
Good
the
brother.
dude. Yeah, that's the dude that is appointed now. He just got the case within less than 24 hours. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Just let him to cross his T's and dot his I's. With third degree murder, as I stated in the chat, I was okay with that. Just because it's hard to prove first degree murder. First degree murder, it comes with premeditation. And at the end of the day, it's tough to know what is going on in the cop that we will not name mind during that time. Even though we can go to his history and go to his background, but in that moment to prove that behind a reasonable doubt, that's why I'm okay with the third degree murder and manslaughter. Just to read it off, a lawful killing of a human being when perpetrated without any design to effect death by a person engaged in of an attempt to perpetrate any felony other than. So they can lock them into that. So regardless of your intent, you caused George to die. And my biggest thing and why everyone's still outraged is if us four in this chat go rob a bank, and while we're holding up that gun, that store clerk just gets a heart attack because of the fear of the gun. Despite who's wearing it, we're all accomplices to murder. And I think that's the common man knows that, and this is why. And this is why people are getting frustrated because the law protects these individuals. I was looking up even today, you guys are going to remember these names. Eric Garner, the guy never got fired, no charges, got acquitted. Michael Brown, you guys remember that? The cop got to resign, get a pension, no charges. Tamir Rice, we all know what happened that in Cleveland, got off. Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, their trials are coming up, but this is what's going on is the fact that there's no accountability for these guys who get paid by our taxes. They are there to protect and serve. So there's no job where you can go tell your boss to get on the ground, put your hands up, put your hands behind your back, shut the hell up, don't look at me, don't side-eye me, boy, and then put you in handcuffs. There's no job that does that. And we are people, and this is why the frustration is because it's systematically just wrong and blatant. And I think that's why you're getting a lot of outrage and pouring. So I understand the third degree murder. I understand the manslaughter charges, and I'm happy for that. And we just got to see this process through. It's not going to be an easy process. Jiggy?
Yeah, I've been following Keith Ellison's career for a long time. Strong brother, good brother, Muslim dude, man, and he's done a lot for the state of Minnesota. So I'm very interested to see how this goes. I'm not rushing to judgment. I know how these things play out. I know it's gonna take time, and hopefully, the jury in the state does the right thing, because as of now, that's kind of what we can hope for. Obviously, we want the Attorney General to provide a zealous prosecution and make sure that this murderer does jail time. So that's kind of where I am with it.
Yeah, it's a scary times, and my biggest thing is if you know what the people want in regards to this is where unions and laws and protection, like these cops have a lot of power behind these badges and they know it. And they're scared and they're afraid and they act out their inner demons and their thought process and their phobias on minorities. And I just don't want to make this as only not black people. They do grimy stuff to white people, Asians, Hispanics, Muslims, like it goes across the board. So at the same time, yes, it's Black Lives Matters, but just know that they are scums that take out their frustrations on all ethnicities because they have the power of the law to back them in their irrational decisions in these heightened moments.
Yep. Yep. That's very valid. I'll move us forward to our next topic. So over the past 7 to 10 days, we've been seeing we went from peaceful protests to all-out riots in a lot of major cities and even secondary cities. Looting, burning buildings. They took police stations. Like they took the police station in Minnesota. They took the 88th and 84th precinct in Brooklyn. I mean, it just seems like every day is getting escalated up a notch. So how are you guys feeling about the protests / riots? What are you seeing? Is there an end in sight? What could possibly end this?
So the protests, like I love it, man. I'm happy to see it. Like I was so happy when they took that precinct in Minnesota. But I think there's something that needs to be understood, that I think that the media, like what a lot of people have been trying to like say on social media, or they've been trying to angle their statements. There's a difference between protesting, there's a difference between rioting and looting. The looting isn't all African American people. If you take a deep look at who the majority is and you really do your research, that should tell you. I'll just say that there. But it's also kind of like, painful, like, when we were going through the pandemic, we still are, but COVID-19, there were a lot of white people protesting, armed, in the face of police officers, very aggressive. The police officers just stood there blank. They just stood there. They didn't buzz. They didn't move. They didn't push back. They just took everything that was coming towards them. Now, if you look at the peaceful protests that are happening, that start off peaceful, that are happening here, where, like, I believe because of what police have done to, like, minorities over the years, people are upset. They finally broke to the point where they're shouting certain hateful things, kind of doing the same that, like, you saw white people do with the COVID-19 protests. And there you look and you just see how, like, even like the batons are held, like, how the guns are held, so like aggressive, so engaging. I saw a video of like this police officer. He was in like full armor. He had like a gun, and he's just bouncing back and forth, like, come on, bring it, like enticing someone to like try me, something like that. So when you bring that type of energy, people are already so angry. What do you think's gonna happen? This is eventually somebody's gonna get upset. It's gonna turn violent. So I just think, and that's another thing that kind of brings us back to, like, how we're viewed. Like, this country is, a holiday's coming up in a few weeks, July 4th, or in about a month. This country is the reason of the way that holiday came about. If you know your history, Americans felt they weren't being treated fairly. They felt that, like, they were getting taxed. They weren't viewed as the people over in Britain. So they went crazy. They fought. They burned stuff down. They protested. They went crazy to get people to respect them, to get people to let them have their own and to be equal. Fast forward to 2020. We do it. What's this gonna do? How does this help anything? People are gonna get hurt. It's war. That's really what it is. It's war. It's war. And I don't want to be insensitive, but in war, when you're fighting for something and you're trying to make a change, and you've been peaceful all these years and nothing has changed, there's gonna be casualties. There's gonna be unfortunate situations that happen. I feel like I can't blame nobody for taking an approach, whatever approach they want to take, because for too long we've sat and we haven't been given the justice that we've deserved, and something's got to give. And if this is what it needs to be done, then so be it.
EP, why don't you jump in?
I'm all for the protest as long as it's peaceful. I don't like the violence, the war aspect of it. because in hindsight, like where you're combating violence with violence, and at the end of the day, like we got to understand when it does become violent, a lot of the times these protests are happening in lower inner city communities. So in hindsight, we're really just killing our own community. And at the end of the day, what real change is that bringing apart? That's just bringing more violence to our people. That's just destroying more of our communities. And I just think if the protest is civil, then I'm for it. But like once you start getting into the looting and fighting of police, and I don't know. And I do agree with Dot, like with the portrayal of how this is going down, of that it's black people doing this with the looting and it's our fault for this. I totally disagree, but at the same time, it's like engaging in this type of behavior is not going to get us what we want. And I see, again, in Minnesota, again, that's where it was directly impacted at. I can see how that city can erupt like that. I can understand that because it happened there. And knowing the track record of their police department, knowing the track record of the officer at hand, I can see how that city can erupt. But I don't know. I disagree with the whole rioting aspect of it.
So quick question for you, BP.
Yep.
Being that we've seen Eric Gardner, Khalif Wyatt, like, Tamir Brown, like, all these situations, all these cases where like people have been peaceful, they've like sat in courtrooms, they've protested, they picketed, they haven't caused any uproar. What do you suggest would need to be done? And if this isn't the route to go, where I feel like, in my personal opinion, I feel like it isn't naturally, violence isn't started on their end. I feel like they're responding towards something.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel would be the appropriate way to to go about this, to get the message across that this isn't okay?
I don't have that answer, Doc. And that's what scares me. You know what I mean? That's the scary part, because I don't want to see what's going on, what's currently going on. I don't want to see that. And again, because one, the betrayal of how our people look, and two, the destruction of our own communities. So to answer your question, I don't know what the answer is for this change. And I just don't think that rioting is the way to go about it.
Z, why don't you jump in?
Listen, I am so 50-50 with this, but I'll say this. I'm with the protesting, and we have to start distinguishing is protesting and then there are opportunist scumbags who are coming out and using this opportunity and unfortunately helping the media change the narrative of what is going on. The best things that I've been loving and seeing is people exposing other ethnicities igniting these riots. So I mean by that is I follow a few women who are African American who's exposing white women who's going on a building out seeing BLM, or prime example, you see what J.R. Smith did to that dude. He whooped his ass, and rightfully so, because he went into a neighborhood he should have never been, and the narrative would have been an African American did this. We had the guy out in Utah. He's in the middle of the street with a bow and arrow shooting into crowds, but then went onto the live station and lied and said 2 African Americans. So it's all ethnicities. My change is, and this is why we had the argument a couple of weeks ago on this show, Black people need to educate themselves, go out and vote. We need to vote. We need to get the people that represent us to help us in our plight in the sense of legislation. Let me read a couple of stats. I actually wrote this down, guys. Just for example,
Impressive.
2016. Yes, all right. Michigan. Trump won Michigan by 11,000 votes. In Detroit, 277,000 Blacks did not vote. Pennsylvania, he won by 44,000 votes. In Philly, 238,000 Blacks did not vote. Georgia, he won by 211,000 votes. Key into the cities that I'm mentioning, ATL, 530,000 Black people did not vote. Florida, he won by 113,000 votes. In Miami, and you guys know I love Miami. 379,000 blacks did not vote. So we want all these changes. We're crying out for help. We need help, but you guys are not even going out to vote. We fought 400 years to have equal rights, and this is why I had big issues with Diddy and this whole earn your vote nonsense. It's not nonsense. I'll take that back. It is right in theory what he's trying to say.
You just
Morally
did what you accused the
articulated.
cop of doing.
Say that again?
You just did what you accused the cop of doing.
No, I'm not doing that. What
Yes, you
I'm
did.
showing you, you
Yes, you
asked me
did.
for a change.
You used
And
you-
this is how you change in regards to we have to change the policies that's been keeping us down for so long. We have to vote. When you see the leader of this country ideology is choke them up, rough them up, get the military in there, get the National Guard in there, martial law. If they're rioting, be aggressive with them. So if you know that that's what's happening at the top, what we need to do is not be combative, not go into a guy's store and take his sneakers and do all this stuff like that. No, protest peacefully, no justice, no peace. As of right now, there has still been no justice. I have no issue, no peace. I have no
All
issue
right.
with the fires.
let me-
I have no issue with nothing.
Let me ask you a question, right? So
Yep.
what I need you to do is next episode, come back and show the percentages, right? So black people by population percentage turn out most to vote. That is true. I know that to be a fact, right? So
Repeat that one more time. Black
people by percentage,
Yep.
by the percentage of black population, we turn out the most to vote, right? So
In that
Because we have the
minute number
smallest
that we are,
population.
no,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So what I'm saying is what
and speak on 2016
no.
that we had the
even
lowest.
still, listen to me, right? What you just did is what you accused that cop of doing, and I'm gonna tell you how. Oh, you are putting the onus on black people for getting Donald Trump elected.
No, I did see you messing up
Hey,
the
listen,
ideology.
I let you go. Oh,
All right, go
black people in Detroit didn't do this. Black people in Philadelphia didn't do that. Black people in Atlanta didn't do this. Black people didn't do this.
Miami.
White people put that monster in office, period. White women voted almost 60% for that animal that's in office. Yo, half of the eligible voters in this country did not turn out. More than 50% of eligible voters did not turn out. Yes, black people do need to be better if we know what.
Okay, that's my point.
Listen, right? You need to be better, but don't do that. I do not like when people do that.
It's facts though. So
No, it's not
77% of the country is white.
But-
So
No, Z,
I'm just
no.
giving you the small change.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, right? Before this whole Black Lives Matter popped off, a lot of people were focused on immigration and ICE, correct?
Absolutely. 2014,
Cages.
2015, yeah.
Kids in cages, blah, 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 right?
Mhm.
Still, Latin people voted for him at like a third of Latin votes went to Trump. So
That's
So-
funny.
So what I'm saying is, I do somewhat agree. Black people do need to do better in terms of voting, but on
Mhm.
average, over the course of however long we've had the privilege of voting, black people, percentage-wise, not whole number-wise, just like how we say, oh well, actually more white people actually got killed by cops than blacks. That's a fact. But if you look at the percentages, you're like 10 times, 12 times more likely to be killed by police if you're black, right? So what I'm saying to you is like, yo, after the election, they tried to put all the blame on black people. Oh, they didn't turn out like they did for Obama. Of course not.
Of course not? What's the reason
Because
behind
there's
the
not-
of course not?
Because there's no representation.
No, yeah, there wasn't a candidate.
There was
that
no, like, yo,
represented us.
if you expected black people to turn out in the numbers that they did for Obama, for Hillary, that's pie in the sky. That's not realistic. And what they did was they took something that was not realistic and tried to do another thing where they blame us for everything with a scapegoat. You've heard that black people are the scapegoat for everything. Oh, black people are on welfare. Black people affirmative action. When in actuality, most of the people on welfare are white women. Most of the people that receive jobs from affirmative action are white women. A white woman is considered a diversity hire. So what I'm saying is like, yes, we do need to be more introspective because I don't want to shut you down. But listen, I'm not saying that what you're not saying is factually correct. But
No, the reason why at the end of the day, these is accurate numbers.
How come white women didn't vote for Hillary more than Donald Trump?
I can't put myself in the mindset of a white woman, so that's gonna be tough for me to answer. But I can put myself in the mindset of an African American man, and why, regardless of what you're trying to say, I was answering BP's question in regard to what type of things, how we can change.
I feel like
I gave an sorry, Doc, I'm gonna let you go in a second. I just gave examples of this is as we can do as our melanin of skin to slowly infiltrate the system that is holding it down. Because I've been sitting here saying for the last 4 years, racism has gone nowhere. It's been here for 400 years. Bigotry's been here. Prejudice has been here. But these last 4 years, I can honestly say people are just outwardly blatant with it now. The comfortability is blatant with it now is because of the person and his ideology up top who supports that type of narrative with this whole MAGA situation. So I understand how you think you can construe what I said, but I'm just giving what we can do, because I agree. We just can't go up and I was sad to see Sneaker Junkies, my head talking about his Boston store got raided into. I was upset, when I seen Greg Jennings on Undisputed saying that he had to protect his wife's store in Minnesota. I get sad that you have to put black-owned businesses just so people cannot touch it. You know what I mean? And that itself is just a thought process that is just so wrong. Because to me, I am just trying.
Doc, before you jump in, right? One thing I'll say is that yes, I do agree. I don't think that, like, obviously you would hope that black businesses wouldn't be burned, but I will say this, that one thing that a lot of us black people like to ignore is how upper class black people and middle class people view lower class poor blacks. And that's
absolutely
in our community too. So a lot of people who's down there poor, no job, is saying, I don't give a shit if this black owned, Spanish owned, white going, it's on fire tonight.
I agree. Yeah. And this is why Desi's getting backlash. The Dream's getting backlash. Virgil and his backlash. This dude, Mayor, whatever he wants to call himself, Mayor of Boston, Lou Armstrong, getting backlash. Like, they talk from these higher up and high pedestals, but they're not in the slums. They don't see the struggle, regardless, black, white, Spanish, Hispanic, Muslim, whoever owns that property. Sorry to cut you off, Doc. Go ahead.
No, I feel like Josh, I hear what you were saying, but I don't think Zeem was taking it there. I think he was more so going along, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zeem, I think more so going along, like, not blaming black people for not going out there and voting, but more so challenging, like,
having more of a voice.
You see what's going on, like, let's see how important our difference is and how important our vote can be. Let's challenge ourselves to become more informed with, like, certain political stances and, like, who can potentially try to help our cause, and let's go out there and let's vote. Not saying that would have changed anything for Donald Trump or him getting elected or not, or, like, if, like, Hillary, whoever voted for Hillary or didn't vote for Hillary. But I don't think there's nothing wrong with, like, challenging your people to, like, let's say, go out there and do it. Like, we right there. Maybe if we had like X, Y, and Z amount more, it can help the situation. So I don't think he's saying it as black people don't vote, that's why we're in a messed up situation. I think he's, like, challenging, inform yourself,
right?
Speak out, learn, like, learn what's going on, and, like, let's try to, we have this amount of votes, let's get to this number. Like, you can always go up. Unless you're at 100%, you can always go up. So, and we're far from 100%. So I don't think that he was, like, trying to look at it the way that And people do take it the way that you explained it, Josh. You're not wrong, but I don't think Zim was trying to do that. And also, we have to get out the narrative that like the rioting and looting is the majority is people that are not black. Like I'm not gonna say people doing that at all,
true.
but it's like I seen a lot of footage where like the bow and arrow guy, that was all white people that beat him up, and he went and said 2 African Americans beat him up. Like, are you serious?
They beat the brakes off him.
It's like a lot of these stores, like I even seen today, like people. That's why I love. I apologize, Josh. I ever used to come at you about using Twitter. Like Twitter's like the best thing because like they're highlighting things now. Like they're showing like a lot of black people ain't raiding a Hot Topic, ain't raiding the van store. Those are you're just seeing the videos and you're just seeing like, so many people running out other than black. Like there's been reports of like police officers knocking out windows. Like you see in certain states, in certain cities, bricks are being left in the middle of the street. Like
Chicago.
Like you gotta like look at like the media portrays one thing, but when the media portrays it, look at what the media says, but then go do your own personal research and you'll kind of learn some of these things that's going on.
Did you guys see the video of the girl? She had a mask on, white lady. She had mad stuff in her hand, and the news reporter said, she might be working there. I'm like,
yeah,
this is what? And like, but that's
She's
why
working.
you just you gotta be careful with the news you're watching. So like, you gotta just stay working. Don't let them shift the narrative.
Exactly.
Don't let George Floyd and what he died for, or unfortunately death. Not that he died for, because I don't think he even expect all this to happen. But don't let the message change. No justice, no peace.
And let me just add this, Zim. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to listen. My boy, Bai Boogie, man, from New York, went to school with him. My little bro, Bai. He actually worked for the Timberwolves. He's living in Minnesota right now, and he's at one of the protests. I wish we could pin his IG just so everybody could see his story. He was almost in tears, and this is a kid. He's a football player, tough. He never cries, and he's like, yo, the craziest thing just happened. He's like, we're all on the bridge. We're like, peacefully protesting. No one is causing a issue. He says they even said the mayor is coming. Do not cause any issues. Like, be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
There was and I'll send it to you guys after. There was a gas truck. That was a big truck, a gas truck. Just imagine.
it was speeding down.
It's speeding down. And if you listen to my boy's video, he's like, yo, we all had to run because if they didn't beat that guy up in the truck and overtake the truck, the intentions was to blow up the bridge. And that's crazy. And that's what that was never reported. Rhode Island, shout out to you, Josh, and Miss Sue for being at the peaceful protest. But we didn't get CNN, no news station covered Rhode Island because there was no fighting.
Exactly.
Right.
Nobody cares to see about that. But they'll show like black people or like
show Brooklyn
stomping on cars, but that's not always people provoked. So that's what you got to pay attention to. And that's why I don't think these celebrities are understanding.
Right. And real quick, I do, even though I have these thoughts and views, I was finding myself indulging in the nice Tito's and Simply Juice, overcome with emotions in regards to, regardless of the ones who are just going out looting and being scum, there was a lot of other ethnicities out there supporting this cause. And that right there, I was appreciative of. I don't, the videos I did see was just like, you know what? It just opened their eyes even more. It's so much blatant what happened to George in that specific incident. And I can't lie, we was making narrative push with the whole Ahmaud Arbery as well, and the whole Breonna Taylor. Now we got that other guy that, Josh, you just sent that video of the BBQ man and how he just got Louisville. So it's just being more blatant. And I think now is not a black versus white or police just as black. It's just the system of police and their training is systematic. And I always go back to, because you guys know I have a family member who's a police officer. Not all cops are bad cops. But what happens is you have a good apple we're going in a group of bad apples, and sometimes that good apple just can't overcome all these bad apples, and they just end up just merging into this ideology and these ways and these systems and these thought process. And ladies and gentlemen, go watch that movie with Tyrese, Black and Blue. I'm
Oh,
telling
that's
you,
a
it's
good
an
one. I just
eye-opener.
watched that too.
Yeah, it's an eye opener if you ever get a chance.
A good one.
Yo, Jake, I just wanted to shout out Sue, man, because I already know, like, Sue's a real one. And just because I know you, I know your background, like, I know your parents been together for what, 40 years now, so I know they were
Crazy.
together, like, in the trenches of this stuff, and I know your dad and your mom had to endure a lot harder things than we ever had to, so I think that was real dope of her being out there with you.
For sure, man. I really appreciate that, man. Shout out to my mom, man. I wasn't even planning on going. So I was gonna remember how we were talking about going this Saturday?
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait for these guys. We're gonna go Saturday. We're gonna pull up. It's gonna be, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a good experience. And then my dad calls me. He's like, you know, your mother's down at the protest, right? So me, automatically, I never get anxiety, like barely ever. Like I'm like, oh shit, my mom is at the protest. She's 4'11", 100 pounds. So I have to run down there. I'm looking for her, find her. We hang out. We're screaming, you know, George Floyd's name out, screaming Black Lives Matter. My mom got her little fist in the air, man. It was nice.
That's dope. That's tough.
It was dope. I did shed a thug tear seeing that.
Yo, and the reason why it didn't escalate is because the cops, like, so if you know anything about the State House in Rhode Island, people are on like the backside of the State House, up the steps, talking, gathering, you know what I'm saying, just fellowshipping all together. The cops just stayed back up against the mall, against the cheese factory, and just chilling.
Yeah.
It wasn't in riot gear. They wasn't militarized. There was no SWAT cars, no military cars. They said, hey, these people are just, you know, peacefully protesting, just going through what they're going through, and they just chill.
And that's why I got to give credit to a lot of, you know I seen that chief police in New Hampshire who says, hey, if you don't think what that guy did wrong, turn in your badge. I've been seeing videos of the dude in Michigan. That was really dope when he walked with the protester, says, I'm taking my baton off because, if you're going into a confrontation, we all been in the hood. When you see a girl pull up and she got her hair in a ponytail and Vaseline on her face, you know she's coming for confrontation. And some of these cops, they come into these situations with that mindset. So it's a lot of good in this world, and I do hate that, the same way cops don't want us to paint all of them with a broad paint of this is how you act. I wish they had that same mindset with African Americans and minorities moving forward as well.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I think that one thing that's really important to mention before I move us to our next topic is when we're talking about police, yes, we're talking about a lot of white cops, but listen, that don't mean that we're not talking about a lot of bad Black cops, a lot of bad Asian cops, a lot of bad Latinx cops. You know what I'm saying? It's not just, hey, it's only white cops are bad. I know y'all see that video in Atlanta where the cops broke this young couple's window, they slashed their tires, tased them and pulled them out. Like, the girl had to be 100 pounds soaking wet. The guy was a smaller guy. They're just trying to drive home. And, the cops overreacted, and that was Black cops that was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a color thing. And this is why I know we go forth in the chat a lot. I say, hey, man, the institution of policing is just
right.
bad. It's really bad. And, I've been listening to a lot of old speeches lately, and I forget the speech, but the guy starts his speech off as Black laws for Black people. And it's interesting, if you Google Newark police after this, or if you're watching this, whenever you watch it, the Newark police, the mayor, is Black, police chief is Black, a lot of the cops are Black. They marched in solidarity with the people all throughout the town, and there was no violence. And if you know anything about Newark, it's wild in Newark. It's crazy in Newark, and it was peaceful. There was no issues. There was no looting. There was no rioting. And so, I mean, I think that is kind of instructive of what BP was asking of, like, hey, what can we do? We have to hire more Black people to be part of the police. If there's 100 cops and 6 Black cops, the Black cops are gonna be like, dang, we're outnumbered. I don't want to get left on like a distress call while I'm, you know what I'm saying, I'm responding, to a violent situation. So now if there's 80 white cops and there's 35, 40 Black cops, now you have less of a problem, especially in areas with high minority populations.
Yeah, facts.
One thing I want to say, man, celebrities during this crisis, during these riots, during this George Floyd murder, man, some of y'all been really showing your ass. A lot of people been stepping up, showing up and showing out. There's been a lot of people who are showing their ass. And sometimes if you don't know how to articulate yourself or say what you want to say properly, sometimes it's better just to shut the fuck up. I'm just Chris Paul it. I see my 6'5" power forward right there.
I've been on my stuff, man, with all this stuff. Like I'm constantly on my phone. Like I've been even more engaged now, just trying to read up on everything, trying to take it serious. And Malcolm X said it, like he said, like Black celebrities, some of them are put there as pawns, and that's so real. Like a lot of them, like you can't expect someone that's like a millionaire or living in Beverly Hills to be connected to what's going on in like the inner city or in the community. They're so far removed, and like that's just like they got to challenge themselves to educate themselves on what's going on. Don't just say something because you feel you have to. You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of what Bobby was saying a little earlier. Like
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, if you're not going to take the time to educate yourself on it, if you're not going to take the time to make it sincere, or you're just trying to say something to please somebody or to protect something, then we don't really value your statement. So it's hurtful because there are people that actually Black people, minorities that look up to some of these ethnic celebrities, and it really hurts when you hear what's the girl's name? What's her name?
Doja Cat?
B. Simone.
B. Simone.
Oh, B. Simone. Oh, yeah.
Girl, B. Simone.
I didn't hear what she said. I just had everybody talking about what was the statement?
So she basically was basically to sum it up, this is not the way, like prayer's the thing that's going to work. And if she felt kind of hurt, I don't even know who she is or what she does really, but what kind of hurt me the most is you're a Black woman. You have this platform, like people look up to you. People, and from what I've learned, I guess Twitter at one point put her to where she is. And just the way that she was responding back to people was like she was rude to them. She was taunting them. It's like almost like, I don't care what you say. This is how I feel. And that's not really how you you go about it. And that was just kind of like whack to me.
But what you saying that why if she feels that way, why can't she express herself? So we're getting on the person that's not expressing themselves. We're getting on the person that is expressing themselves. So if it's because you don't agree,
I like BT's energy.
Yeah, because I just feel like it's like
yeah.
So maybe I said that. Maybe I said that wrong. It wasn't the fact of her opinion of her saying that prayer's the way that works. If she feels that's the way that works, that's fine. But I feel like the response of when people were trying to engage in conversation with her as to why maybe that wasn't the best way to put it, her response back was just kind of downplaying and dismissing everybody.
And making a joke.
The best about it.
So I'll read the quote that she said on Twitter that got her in trouble. I'm not living to please man. I'm here to please God. At the end of the day, I am a Christian. I'm God-fearing. I have to answer to him. I'm going to ask myself, what would Jesus do? Not what would angry Black woman do. I am angry, but I'm also trying to be godly. So basically,
I think the key word that what I noticed rubbed a lot of the Black Twitter the wrong way was I'm not going to be the
Not a
blank,
black.
angry black woman,
Yeah.
which that itself has a negative sentiment
Connotation.
behind it.
Because she had
Yup.
her own she's inducing her own stereotype, and I get it.
Right.
Well, the
right.
video
And
that
then-
she the video that she blew up on, I'll never forget because I watched it. It was funny because I thought she was serious at first because nobody really knew who she was. She was talking about like, oh my God, the next man that cheats on me is going to have to square up on God. And she's like punching the steering wheel, screaming, crying. So she's the angry black woman. So, and then a lot of times with these Instagram people and these Twitter people, they didn't come up to their fame through like the normal channels of like doing like stand up and being in comedy clubs and touring the country and putting the work in. Like you make a viral video, you out of here. So like people feel like, man, we made you hot. Like we made you, because like it just feels a little bit different when we're talking about social media celebrity, because they're on social media all the time. They're interacting with people all the time. So like if Dr. Dre came out, who's like a billionaire who like lives in seclusion and rents an island for 3 months out there and says, you know what, man, you guys need to relax. It would make more sense because he's so far removed from anything. But she's still like doing wilding out. She's still doing Instagram videos every day, YouTube videos every day. I think that's why people feel more hurt by her and some others, because they're not so much invested in her talent. They're invested in her as a person. And if you look at someone that's done it the right way, where people are more invested in her as a person than her talent, is like a Cardi B. I would say.
Yeah, I just feel, you know, I don't know. Like I don't put my thought process and a lot of my thought process into a celebrity say and do. I do feel some is a PR move, some is clout chasing move. But at the end of the day, even if it's clout, even if it's PR, even if it's not sincere, you're putting it out there. So I got no issues with it in the long term of whatever the case may be. And then sometimes it's just learning moments, you know what I mean? And what I'm finding is a lot of people are coming out, speaking out on things, and just not getting all the information. So I respect everybody's opinion, but if your opinion is going to be detrimental to the larger task at hand, I think that's where a lot of them is getting pushback at. You know what I mean? And I think that's where it goes into what Jiggy was saying. It's just like, all right, listen, we made you here, we made you hot. This is why we're hot. Stick to it why you're hot. And if you're opposed to it, which I can't say I disagree with that, because if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But if you're putting it out there, deal with the backlash. And what I'm noticing is the backlash is so immense. You see all these apology videos, apology posts in the notes, apology tweets, retracting statement. What I really meant, and like I said, I seen it from Virgil, I seen it from Desi, I seen it from that Tokyo Jets girl, I seen it from B. Simone. She said all that popping off, and it was on Shade Room. Like, so it's like, yeah, like what are you doing? If this how you feel, cool, stand by it, explain yourself, send 10 toes down on it. Don't let the opinions of others, alter your thought process if that's how you feel. Because when I see that you feel differently, that just lets me know you just move with the wave and you are succumb to pressure, and I can't respect it. So that's why I just be like, all right, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's important that celebrities, athletes, whoever is speaking or has that platform has to understand the platform that they do have, and when they are speaking, just try to articulate themselves the best they can, and understand, like you said, just be 10 toes down on it. I think it has to be organic. It has to be authentic. If it's not that, then again, people smell the bull, and it's gonna come out. So I think you just have to understand your platform, what you bring to the table. The one comment I didn't like was the Lil Wayne comment. He was kind of talking in circles, but when it came down to it, like, wrong is wrong, right is right. Anybody that saw that video knows that the situation was 100% totally wrong. So for him and his background and where he's from, for him to speak on the situation like that and to be that insensitive, he's not that far removed. Like he came from humble beginnings. A lot of these athletes come from humble beginnings, so they've been us at some point in time who have raised their status, who have raised their family status, but that makes them even more equipped to speak on a lot of the things that's going on.
Good point.
I agree.
Good point. So I'll move us forward. So guys, has there been any locals that you've seen losing their mind during this Black Lives Matter?
What do you mean?
Is this a real room? We see anybody doing crazy moves on social media?
No
The only
comment.
one that was brought to my attention, and obviously it was just in my promoter group chat, was just that whole Lou Armstrong situation. And the only reason why I felt the way was just like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? And he was somebody who put 3 videos out there. People was going into his comments, and he succumbed to the pressure of like, man, no, I really do feel this way, but I see a lot of people don't feel this way. And it's just, his sentiment was, well, why we don't get enraged with black on black violence? And I'm just like, my guy, you're going to get killed by the people who live in your neighborhood and who you're surrounded with. Whites are killed by more whites 10 to 12 more times than black on black. But the media is out there, the outlets out there. And that was the only one. And the only reason why I'm affiliated with him, because he does a lot of parties on Broad Street. People bring him down because, he can bring big booty IG hoes and he sprinkles money on them. But I'm just like, come on, man, this is a little ridiculous. And obviously you see the people on Twitter. And like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion. They just got to be careful with that messaging. And if you're going to say it, stay 10 toes down. It made me even cringe worse when I seen another video of him explaining himself. Then somebody else saying, oh, I talked to my black man OG who kind of put, I'm like, come on, like,
Yeah, you're doing too much.
you're doing too much. And I don't know why, like, I know I'm going to hear it. I'm probably not going to be accepted in Lawrence, Mass no more. That place is too far from my crib
That's
anyway.
a long ride.
That's a long ride anyway. But I'm going to keep it a buck. I don't know why that just irritates. I was even going to comment on the post, but I'm just like, nah, it's just no point. You know what I mean? It's just like when someone's lost like that, and then don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people who think that way that he thinks, but it kills me. And he added to the narrative of what whites been using for us for decades. What about black on black crime? I'm just like, oh
And
my
that's a good
God.
point. That's a good point. And I don't know that dude. But I think people do that, and that's what goes back to what you were saying earlier. Kazim challenged our people to learn their history. Like you have to understand why. First, it's kind of a long conversation, but you have to go, if you ever have time for anybody that views this, if you ever say the notion of black on black crime, you have to go do your research as to why there is black on black crime and as to why there's black people are in some of the poverty stricken communities that they're in. Also,
systematic racism.
Just to kind of put some stuff out there, everybody likes to talk about Chirac, everybody killing in Chirac and more deaths than Iraq. But what you don't understand, and if you do your research, there were guns put there by the government that those people and those gang members in Chicago were able to have access to and steal without any punishment. Another thing, if you've ever been a fan of The Wire or watched The Wire, that's a true story. They let them sell their drugs. They let them commit murders with the hopes of them, not causing any trouble outside of their areas.
Staying inside that zone. Yeah,
so that's just stuff to go in and do your research about, as far as we're in some of the situations that we're in.
And one thing I really want to say, this just feels different. It feels different than the 2015, 2016 Black Lives Matter. It feels different because people are forgetting all about COVID. So COVID.
That's what I was gonna say. COVID just went away, huh? While we're protesting.
So it just completely upended the American economy and destabilized a lot of things. So now it's like, so it's not just protests that are happening in black areas. Like in New York, they ransacked Soho. In Boston, they ransacked Newbury Street. In LA, they got Fairfax. They got Santa Monica Piers. Like it's like a concerted effort. So when you're the white power structure and you completely just ignored the pleas of black people, now that there's this unemployment, it's like I feel like we're almost like teetering on like a fence. You know what I'm saying? We don't have solid footing. So now what starts out as protests, you let these outside entities, you know, like the skater bros, they're saying that the Antifas are like, yo, let's break the AutoZone, boom, 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 and then they'll follow us. So now you have this problem where the police have lost complete control. In Minnesota, they just threw in the towel like, yo, y'all win. And
Yeah, I got that.
left the precinct, right? So now you have 40 million people unemployed. So it's not just black people now who are like, you know, marginalized. There's a whole huge group of white people now who are super marginalized and don't see hope. You know what I'm saying? Don't see their jobs coming. I'm coming back. And I say that to say Dr. Martin Luther King, his goal was not just to like, you know, to get the boot off the neck of black people, but his goal was to get the boot off the neck of poor people. And his goal in his mind was saying, hey, if I can get all the poor people, everyone on the low end, in the working class, to start seeing what the super rich oligarchs and billionaires and millionaires are doing, then we can make real change and we can overthrow them, not like in a violent way, but vote them out, boycott their businesses, and start from the grassroots. So even though it might not seem like it, something like that could be taking place because we're reaching a point now where there's such a wealth gap, and the COVID-19 has made us uncomfortable, has made us unstable, has made white people who have owned businesses for generations lose them, has made corporations have to lay off people who make great salaries. So now when you have this instability and you have someone like Trump who doesn't have the ability to say, all right, guys, we're going to fix this together, like FDR did with the New Deal back in the early 1900s when we were going through the Depression, right? All those factors are making it, are leading to this riot, to this anarchy, to this craziness. Now, I'm not saying 100% is gonna, I don't even know what going back to normal looks like, because when this started, we were already in quarantine, which is like something completely abnormal from what we're used to. So that's just something to think about when we start talking about why the riots are as intense as they are.
Facts. I agree with that whole closing sentiment that you just spewed out. That was real.
Fellas, any parting shots?
Yo, just stay safe.
Floyd.
R.I.P. George
R.I.P.
Floyd. R.I.P. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, everybody down the list. And at the end of the day, just be kind to one another. Stay woke. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It's okay. It's okay to research. It's okay to Google something. You have a Siri, whatever you want. You know what I mean? It's okay to do that. And at the end of the day, man, just treat people with kindness. And at the end of the day, I love this group chat, man.
Facts, man.
Love y'all, about to be dinner for me, man.
Yep. Stay safe. Stay solid, man. And we'll see y'all next time.
All right, fellas. Peace.
Peace.
All right.